In this video, I have compiled a selection of footage from social media about the issue of defunding the police, including some testimonials from active and retired police officers, as well as some discussion about what defunding in this context actually means.
I think that the origin of the concept of defunding the police came from a very bad area. It didn't come from justice, it came from revenge. And they want to give a big FU to the police department because a lot of these cities aren't just saying defund the police, they want to abolish the police in general. If people really wanted to be honest, you want to help the police department and you actually care, then bridge the gap, do a ride along, learn about law enforcement, give them the financial support they need. Understand that there's bad cops. Let's facilitate getting them out of the profession.
But I think we need to defund the police. I think the expansion of responsibilities that has been placed on police departments to solve societal issues has caused part of that funding stream to significantly expand, right? We have concentrated a lot of funding within the police department and taken that funding away from things like the Department of Education, the Department of Social Services, to deal with things like housing insecurity. And that really is not the core responsibility of the police department. So yes, I agree. We still need some form of a public safety apparatus in our communities because, we do have some bad people out there in the world and we need to protect our citizenry from that.
We've been asked to increasingly handle mental health issues and other things without the tools or equipment to do them. And so if you start looking at what's happening already across the United States, police departments are independently creating their own models to address these problems with multidisciplinary systems. So that we're not just sending a man with a gun to handle every problem. It may be a police officer paired with an actual crisis worker or a mental health expert.
When I was on the police department, when you have a loose dog in the community, they call the police department. We have animal control, but we get there faster. Mental health, we had a mental health crisis unit where cops would dress in plain clothes and go out and talk to people in the community. We're just doing too much. Now, we also had assisting agencies, right? So we'll go to a crisis intervention call. They trained all of us officers to be crisis intervention trained. We do our best. And then when it's done, they don't need us. We walk away. We have a crisis team come speak to them. But they do offer, or they're making us do too much. Yeah. I don't think that we need to be defunded, but I think they need to start to scale back and say, do we really need to go to a call where a person is suicidal and they want to hurt themselves? They're the only one in the house. They're the only one there. They're not hurting. They just want to kill themselves. Do we really need to show up to that? Because when we get there, now the person want to kill everybody because we have exacerbated the situation and we have to shoot the man because he's a threat.
And we have this thing called a command presence. And when you're thinking about, killing yourself, seeing a guy come in looking like an action figure ain't what you want to see. We got to think about the person on the other side that's in crisis. What's going to serve them better? Us or a paramedic or EMT or somebody that has a degree or skill in crisis intervention?
When we put police officers in schools, what are we doing? Ultimately, we're putting police officers in a situation where they have to make decisions. And a lot of times the decision is easy to criminalize adolescent behavior rather than give that young person the mental health treatment that he needs to deal with whatever issue they have going on. When you send police to address street homelessness, and ultimately that communication is not working where you get compliance, you deal with housing insecurities by arresting someone for illegally camping within the city limit. And
a big part of this conversation really is about reimagining how we do public safety in America, which I support, which is this. We have confused the idea that to achieve safety, you put more cops on the street, instead of understanding to achieve safe and healthy communities, you put more resources into the public education system of those communities, into affordable housing, into home ownership, into access to capital for small businesses, access to health care regardless of how much money people have. That's how you achieve safe and healthy communities.
Defunding the police doesn't mean abolishing the police. It means taking some of those funds that are typically 1/3 of the budget of a city and giving some of those funds to services like mental health and education and mental health resources.
But here's the bottom line. If you contrast, many communities which have a heavy presence of police to middle and upper middle class suburbs in America, you will not see that presence of police. But what you will see families who have an income that allows them to get through the end of the month. You will see good public schools. You will see people who have access to health care and can afford it. You will see people who have jobs.
A majority of New Yorkers, people who live in the 5 boroughs of New York City, they do not want to defund the police. They actually have good interactions with NYPD, and by and large, they want that institution to stay intact. What's going to happen is you're going to have more officers leaving the department, going to different departments, or leaving the profession entirely. Crime is going to go up.
I applaud all of the mayors and city councils that are taking a look at their budgets, taking a look at what they're going to do. Here in the District of Columbia, the mayor is talking about adding to it. If you look at overall, over the last 10 years, you've seen a 14–15% increase in policing because police are called to do everything. Right. That's right, increase. Because policemen, and by the way, I have policemen in my family. They're called to do everything. They're called to handle domestic disputes. They're called when homeless people fall asleep on the park bench. They're called to do everything. So they're looking at ways to put resources in other city budgets that may also contribute to public safety.
Shootings are up dramatically. Police retirements are up dramatically. Cops are coming off the street. Assaults, auto crimes. Everything is up.
When you talk about reimagining the police department, you're not necessarily saying get rid of the police. And I think everyone agrees that we ask too much of men and women in law enforcement. We do ask them to be social workers. We ask them to be domestic referees. We ask them to save our lives. We want to be able to call them when our safety is in jeopardy.
Do you want to see a police presence maintained in your community?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to make a correction. I'm not for dismantling, I'm for defunding, which are very different things.
So explain, what is the difference and what do you want to see actually happen?
Yeah, so dismantling is to make something completely different of new, and defunding is doing just what it's talking about. It's taking funds out of one pot of funding and moving it over. When I talk about defunding, I'm talking about moving funds to community resources. Unfortunately, police do not have the insight, the understanding, the capability, or the training to take care of all of the issues that take place in the community. And so when we're talking about that, we're talking about mental health issues. We're talking about domestic calls. Let's take some of that funding and repurpose it in the community's hands with organizations who are on the ground doing the grassroots work.